Rocky 3 sees Rocky Balboa's rise to fame challenged by Clubber Lang, a fierce competitor played by Mr. T. The film explores themes of redemption and perseverance as Rocky overcomes personal doubts with the help of his mentor, Apollo Creed, played by the talented Carl Weathers. In Rocky 4, Apollo Creed faces a tragic fate at the hands of the intimidating Soviet boxer Ivan Drago. This installment delves into the Cold War tensions and the power of friendship as Rocky seeks revenge for his fallen friend, ultimately triumphing against all odds. Carl Weathers' portrayal of Apollo Creed brought charisma and depth to the character, leaving an indelible mark on the Rocky series. His legacy lives on through his memorable performances, showcasing his talent and contribution to cinema.
This is New York City zero budget guerrilla filmmaker Sean Weathers.
And I'm Canadian screenwriter and playwright Angus Combe. And as sure as the entrance to the Philadelphia Museum of Art is now known as the Rocky Steps, we're about to celebrate Rocky 3, Rocky 4, and the unforgettable performances of Carl Weathers. The No Rules Film School is now in session.
This came about with the, of course, untimely and sad death of Carl Weathers. And I was just thinking off the top of my head, because he's been in a lot of projects. People know him from some of his TV work. I think he was in The Heat of the Night. He was in a lot of different things. But for me, as a kid growing up in the mid 80s to the early 90s, I knew him from the Rocky movies as Apollo Creed. I knew him for Action Jackson, kind of like an action movie slash blaxploitation movie where he got the chance to be a lead character. And then later on for some of his comedic turns, like Happy Gilmore. When he wasn't teaming up with Stallone, he teamed up with Schwarzenegger for Predator. So there was a few movies we could have watched. We could have watched Predator and Happy Gilmore and a few other things. Action Jackson. I think we settled in on Rocky 3. And while we were at it, if we were going to do another one, it's like, let's just stick to the Rocky franchise. But overall, this was more a celebration of Carl Weathers. And I always thought of him as a good action hero guy. I don't know why Stallone never put him into the Expendables movies, even though I don't like those movies. When you get to a point where you're casting like people like Fraser Crane, comedians in those movies, why not go with Carl Weathers? I know they did have somewhat of a falling out because he wanted to be in some of the newer Rocky movies and Creed and stuff, and Stallone kind of joke it off like, "Hey, you were dead anyway. Like, what are we doing?" So I don't know what their relationship was like, but I always viewed him as someone that I loved in the parts that he was in. I loved when he had his chance to be the lead character in Action Jackson. And I kind of saw him as having potential to have done more than he did in filling that void of, not just action hero, but like a black action hero. Because you did have a lot of action movies in the late 80s to early 90s. You had your Van Dams, your Seagals, and of course Stallone and Chuck Norris and Schwarzenegger, a lot of them. I think he could have held his own in that bunch.
Oh, totally. And I always wondered why Action Jackson didn't spawn a series.
Why do they call you Action anyway?
Have to catch a cab. Now I got you.
Was it not quite successful enough, or I don't know. But it seemed like it would have been a good series if they could have somehow made that happen. He would have been a great star in that franchise.
He was riding like a taxi or something for half the movie. He had Vanity. I think did Vanity do nudity in there? She might have.
Well, maybe. Yeah.
He had Craig T. Nelson as the bad guy. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
it's such cheesy action 80s fun, man.
Yeah, totally. And of course, I mainly knew him from the Rocky films, and I did, of course, see Predator, loved Predator, and then I noticed that he was in these older movies, these two blaxploitation films, which I liked, Friday Foster and Bucktown. So he was kind of around for that, but he didn't really become a star of blaxploitation, and he didn't really become a movie star. He did a lot of TV until Rocky kind of really opened it up for him. Yeah, and what you were referring to there, for the sixth film in the Rocky series, which was Rocky Balboa, Stallone actually asked permission from Weathers and Mr. T and Dolph Lundgren to use their footage from the earlier movies. And Mr. T and Dolph Lundgren said, yeah, cool, go ahead. But Carl Weathers actually wanted to be in the movie. He didn't want just old footage. He wanted to somehow be in the movie. And Stallone, of course, said no. And so Weathers said, well, fine, you can't use my image. So apparently they used some other guy in the flashbacks instead of Carl Weathers. It was somebody who looked kind of like him. But apparently after that, they did kind of patch things up and they were friends again. And so Carl Weathers did allow footage from the old films to be used in Creed in 2015. So yeah, there was a bit of a falling out there. And whether or not that, I don't remember the timing of when the Expendables came out, but whether that was part of it or I don't know, it's hard to say. But I do think he would have been a good addition to those movies. Totally.
It just didn't make sense because he had so many like people who you didn't even think of as action stars in those movies. And again,
Yeah.
I don't even like those movies at all. I think they're terrible. I think they're a blown opportunity to be something fun. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just think he would have been great in there, especially with their
Yeah.
on-screen history. It would have been awesome.
Oh yeah. Totally. Totally. But yeah, I guess it wasn't to be. And I guess Carl Weathers, he did do a lot of TV and more comical stuff, I guess, as he got older. But he also did a lot of directing, much more than I realized. He directed a bunch of TV shows, like episodes of TV shows, and some of them he did many episodes. And he also got involved. I think the last thing was The Mandalorian, where he appeared in some episodes, but he also directed a couple of episodes of The Mandalorian. So he was still keeping busy right up until the end. And much like Stallone, he got into directing. So that's a cool thing.
Yeah, so I guess we can focus a little bit on the movies now that we've talked a little bit about Carl Weathers. He was the
Yeah.
reason we saw these movies, but these were
Yes.
fun little, I mean, I won't even call them sports movies because they're not even grounded in reality with the sports, It's like
Yeah.
they're more action movies than anything else or buddy movies than
Yeah.
anything else, but it's hard to call them sports movies when there's nothing about what they do that relates to the sports, at least when we're talking about Rocky 3 and 4, these
Yeah.
movies. But for the most part, it's just a lot of training sequences and working out montages, of getting in shape, a lot of speeches, a lot of inspirational stuff. And for me, that really hit home as a kid, because I was into sports, I was a smaller guy, 5'7". I played football. I was kind of skinny as a kid too. So this whole Rocky storyline was just perfect for me. And
Yeah.
also because by the time I got into the Rocky movies, it was from Rocky 3 onward, Stallone looked like an action figure, like the action figures
Yeah.
I'd have as a kid or the action cartoons I'd watch. He's so zero, like 0% body fat. I didn't think about the steroids or anything like that as a kid. I just thought, man, my God, look at this guy. I wish I looked like that. So I just loved him for the physique, and I was just into his movies. And yeah, that's what really got me into these movies as a kid is the action aspect of it. And looking back at
Yeah.
it now, it is so far fetched. It's so silly. But I
Yeah.
just love these movies as a kid, and I wish I was
Oh yeah.
into the actual good parts of the movie. I took for granted how good Carl Weathers was as Apollo Creed because I was just
Yeah.
completely focused on Rocky. Apollo Creed was great. James Brown was awesome. Mr.
Yeah.
T was awesome. All these elements
Yeah.
that are actually the better parts of the movies, like I just took for granted as a kid. I was just into like the physique and the action, Rocky winning in the end, the music video montages. That's what did it for me.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I'm always surprised when I see these movies described as sports movies. It's like, yeah, I don't know. That doesn't even occur to me. I just think of them as fantasies if they're anything. They're action movies. They're fun movies. I don't think of them as like sports movies. I don't know. I don't know why. But yeah, they were definitely childhood favorites, especially Rocky 3 for me. And I did really like Apollo in that movie, and I liked him in the previous movies as well. But I really loved the fact that they kind of teamed up and became friends. I don't know, that to me is I guess we could call it a myth that I really subscribe to, is like enemies who become friends. I don't know why, but I find that really appealing that particular myth. And not that they were so much enemies as opponents, but just the idea that they are now working together. There's something about that. And I always thought he was great. I always liked him. And of course, when I saw him in these other movies, I was always pleased. Oh, look, it's Carl Weathers. You know, it was always a pleasant thing. But yeah, Rocky 3, you know, they made that 9-foot tall statue for the movie that they stuck in front of the museum, the Philadelphia Museum of Arts. And apparently after the movie, they tried to give it to the museum, and they said, no, we don't want that. It started a big argument that that's not art. That's just a movie prop. We're not interested in that.
Not interested in promoting your movie.
Yeah. So they did eventually have to bring it back when they shot Rocky 5, and they, it's I find that very funny. It's like, nope, we're not interested in that. Take it out of here.
But don't they have like a real statue of him now somewhere out there? Or like at least on those steps that he was
I'm
running
not
up?
sure. They say it was moved to a park at the foot of the stairs now, I think. So it might be in the park. But it was in storage, I guess, in between Rocky 3 and Rocky 5. So so I guess it is somewhere now, which is kind of cool. But
yeah, I'm seeing a picture of it online. It looks like it is in a park somewhere.
yeah, and you know, the other characters like Mr. T, Clubber Lang, he was amazing.
Oh, he was so good.
Yeah.
Oh my, he was so hilarious, man.
Oh,
those
yeah,
one-liners. What do you predict? Pain. Why don't you
Yeah.
come over here for real, man?
Yeah,
he was so funny.
He was so good, and you know, as I may have said before, I hated him in the movie. I hated his character, but I was instantly a fan of his after the movie, and I watched him on the A Team, and anytime I saw him, it was like, oh man, it's Mr. T. So yeah, I became a bit of a Mr. T fan. Dolph Lundgren, I think, is also very good in his own way, but he doesn't quite have the same, I don't know, level of excitement or something as Mr. T. I guess because, and it's a deliberate choice, that he wanted this to be, very different, and he didn't want to be a loudmouth the way the previous guys were. So he approached it as this very stoic, quiet character. But I do think he was very good at it. I think, I also hated him, so he must have been doing something right.
Yeah. I mean, I think he looks the part. And like you said, he wasn't asked to do a lot. He didn't have a lot of experience. But for me, he's kind of the weak link in the villains. Apollo was great. Mr. T was unreal, how good he was. So, I mean, to me, he's kind of like the last in that order of those three opponents for these first few movies.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is what it is. I'm not the biggest fan of his.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. So anything else you want to say about either of these films?
No, there's really not a lot to say about these movies. There's just not a lot to them, honestly. They're popcorn movies. The music is great. The montages are great. Is a lot of it nostalgia? Yes. Is someone who's not into nostalgia or not into 80s, would they like it? I don't know. Because as we mentioned before, it really has nothing to do with real sports. Like someone who's actually into sports, I don't think will get into these movies. Aside from the whole David and Goliath storyline, there's really no strategies to any of these fights. And I think the fact that Rocky 3, the fight was so short, actually was a benefit, because with all of these fights, it's just constant punches to the head with their hands down. Like anyone who knows anything about boxing or any kind of combat sports, I don't think will appreciate any of this stuff, because there's just no strategy. It's just footage of people punching each other in the head to music until eventually the other guy gets tired of punching Rocky in the head and he loses, So
That's right. That's Rocky's signature move.
Yeah.
But no matter how you look at it, the Rocky series is one of the most successful film franchises in the history of cinema. And, there's a total of 10 films so far. And apparently they're talking about doing a Drago film, a prequel television series, and various other spin-offs. So, it seems unlikely that Rocky is going to fade into obscurity anytime soon. And neither will his one-time rival, his friend and mentor, Apollo Creed.
Wow. And I don't actually know how much Stallone's getting from this because I think the producers own the rights to the Rocky movies.
Yeah.
So, last I heard, I think he was broke and his wife was going to leave him. So
Wow.
yeah, I think what he's doing is he's doing some kind of reality show on, I don't know what network is on, but on some network, he has some reality like Kardashian type show where it's
Oh,
him,
wow.
his wife, and his daughters.
Yeah.
I guess he's doing that to like save his family and his marriage. I don't know
Wow.
how he blew the money. I didn't really read up on it because celebrity gossip is really not my thing. I just
No.
heard about it a little bit when I was doing a little bit of research for what we're doing. But yeah, he blew his
Wow.
money despite all the Rocky movies and the Rambo movies and the Expendable movies and all the stuff that he's doing. Somehow he ran through all of his cash.
Wow.
Um, yeah, yeah. And like I
That's
said, I think pretty much the producers are the ones that own the rights to stuff. And
yeah.
even though like he got the ability to star in the movie, I don't think he's really making money off or much money off of these Creed movies and these
No.
Drago movies and all that stuff. If he's not in it, he's not really benefiting much.
Yeah. That could be certainly a sad story if that's true. So, what other related or unrelated movies have you been watching?
Well, I guess we're kind of done with Rocky, but we're not done with Stallone because I saw Cobra recently. And it wasn't even
Oh,
on
yes.
purpose. It was just a complete coincidentally. I saw Cobra, and that
Wow.
happened to be the movie he did after Rocky 4.
Yeah.
And I think that was the movie he did instead of Beverly Hills Cop.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not sure the timing of that because I think Beverly Hills Cop came out in 90 in 1984, and then Cobra came out in 1986. But
Oh, yeah.
he did turn down Beverly Hills Cop to do Cobra. So not sure
Uh-huh.
how the production of that played out, but regardless, it's kind of interesting in that he turned that down to do Cobra. And so he turned down Beverly Hills Cop, which came out in 84, to do Cobra in 86. In 85, in between those two movies, he did Rocky 4, where he would meet his future wife, Brigitte Nielsen,
Yes.
who would then star with him in Cobra, and then she would go on to star in Beverly Hills Cop 2.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird how all those movies kind of intertwined.
It
But
is.
Cobra, that was so I was a huge Stallone fan because of Rocky 3 and 4 and the Rambo movies, the whole action hero physique and all that stuff I mentioned before. Cobra is when he started to lose me. Where it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
like, even as a little kid, I'm like, this seems like an egomaniac in a way. It's like, you start noticing things that you don't really, as a kid, like, as an adult, like your mind completely wraps around it. But as a kid, you're starting to notice, like, wait a minute, those are a lot of shots. Is he gonna reload at some point? It's like,
Yeah.
or it's like, man, it's yeah, like I'm so happy. Like, yeah, he's killing all these people. It's like, oh, he's still killing people. It's like, the body counts are so high, and like the never reloading, always having a cool one-liner. And I was never into politics as a kid. Even as my teens, early 20s, never into politics. Slightly into it as I get older. But
Yeah.
looking back at this recent rewatching of it, it is so political.
Mm.
It's like it all it deals with is criminals having too much rights, and
Yeah.
he has some great one-liners, but it's so very much like Republican right-wing type politics in this movie, and it's just so overt. As a kid, you didn't notice it; you just like the guns and the shooting up, but it's an
Yeah.
extremely political movie. I mean, his lines are fun. It's like you're the disease and I'm the cure. I don't
Yes.
bargain with psychos, I lock them away. And he was
Mm.
like, did I use excessive force? Take a look at this kid. Tell his mother I use excessive force. And just like killing hundreds of people, literally hundreds of people without reloading. And it's like, I don't know. It's just weird, but it does have a little bit of camp value to it. Um,
Yeah.
I would say it's worth watching. It's kind of borderline, like this is a fun, campy movie to watch, slash this is just a bad movie. It's kind of
Uh-huh.
riding that rail,
Yeah.
where it's
Yeah.
just explosions, gunfights, never reloading, action cliches, one-liners. It kind of straddles that line where it's kind of like at times it's just really bad, and at times it's just like, man, this is a really fun watch. It depends on your tolerance for the politics and the cheesiness. How much of that can you bear? And depending on if you're going to love it as a cheesy movie or if you're just going to think it's a bad movie. But either way, it's not a good movie. That's what I'll say about it.
Yeah. Well, I'm long overdue for a rewatch of that one, but that is certainly my memory of it, that it was kind of a failed attempt at creating another amazing franchise, and that it did kind of lean more into the campy kind of so bad it's good territory. Um, but I wasn't sure whether it fully got there, whether it was quite fun enough. But it's definitely one I do want to revisit because it feels like it should be one of those so bad it's good movies.
Trust me, when you see it, he just feels like an egomaniac. Like these Latin guys come up to him, right? And he just rips off the Latin guy's shirt,
Yeah,
and then, oh, no, I'm sorry, Mr. Stallone. It's like, come on, they would kick your ass. It's like a whole gang of them, you know? You just
yeah,
rip off the guy's shirt, they vandalize your car after you left, and, kick your ass. And it's just like, it was just a lot of scenes like that. And him
yeah,
posing and drinking beers, and you could tell he's posing like, yeah, I know I'm buff. And it's like, you don't want to see someone just posing. Like, it just feels like, I don't know. It feels a little obnoxious, and it just felt too vain a lot of the movie.
uh-huh,
So,
yeah, yeah. I can see that.
and he'd do some weird things that he thought were cool, like he'd take a pizza out and he's cut his pizza up with scissors. It's
Oh
like, yeah,
yes.
I'm eccentric, I'm cool. It's like, no, it's just stupid, dude.
Well, I watched a much more recent movie this week called Werewolves Within from 2021. And it's apparently an adaptation of a video game, which I did not realize. And I must say, it's for an adaptation of a video game, it's really quite good. It rates well, and gets some good reviews. It's by a guy named Josh Rubin, who I think made another movie called Scare Me, which did well, if I remember correctly. I wasn't super keen on that one, but I enjoyed this one better. It's kind of a murder mystery where there may or may not be a werewolf killing people. It's kind of a comedy, kind of horror. And for the most part, it is quite entertaining and it's quite well done. I do think it does do something that a lot of more recent horror films I've watched do, which is that it's kind of trying to be everything for everyone. It's ticking boxes, it's having gay characters, it's having various other types of characters. It's trying to, cover all the bases, and I think it's probably about the best version of that I've seen, where it doesn't really feel too clunky. Some of them feel like they're really just shoehorning stuff in. For me, where it kind of fell apart was toward the end, where I feel like they kind of pull the rug out on you in a way. And it's going to sound a bit contradictory, but when it comes to murder mysteries, this makes two mistakes at once. And one of them is that if you think about it really early on in the film, and you think, well, who's the least likely person to be the killer? Then you'll probably figure out who the killer is in this movie, which is what I did. And then when it got to the end and they revealed that this person was the killer, I kind of went, wow, because that is not at all logical with anything in the movie. Like they didn't set it up with a lot of clues that you could logically follow and lead you to this conclusion. In fact, I feel like they kind of cheated a little bit in the way that Agatha Christie supposedly cheated when she wrote her mysteries, where she would just kind of make everyone possible to be the killer, and then she'd just pick one at the end, and there was no way for you to logically figure it
Is that
out.
how she did her movies? I mean, her novels?
Apparently, yeah. Apparently, the
Oh,
serious mystery writers don't like her because she would kind of cheat that way. There was no way
oh.
to actually figure it out. Now, some people love her, and I'm sure they're still good reads, but that was a criticism, and I felt that this movie kind of suffered from that, where there was no logical way for you to conclude who this killer was going to be, but I, at the same time, predicted it just by saying who's the least likely killer. And I think that the writer had a bit of an axe to grind. A woman named Mishna Wolf, who has written a book that gets taught in classes, and
So she did
uh,
a werewolf movie, and her last name is Wolf.
yeah, she wrote it. Yeah. Um, so she, I think, had a bit of an axe to grind, which we might call feminist axe to grind, where she kind of, I don't know, it didn't quite hang together for me at the very end. I found it a little bit
So
disappointing,
this is
but
on the opposite political spectrum as Cobra, then, right?
yes,
One
yeah.
goes too far right, one goes too far left.
Possibly, yeah, possibly. And, but, it's still a very entertaining movie, and it's one of the more successful recent horror films that I've seen in terms of telling a story that I cared about. I liked the characters, but I just feel it kind of let me down in the last 20 minutes or so, and it wasn't quite what it could have been, but could still be worth a watch. And I think other people may have liked it more than me. Maybe some people bought into the ending in a way that I didn't. But, that was kind of my feeling on it.
Yeah, I saw a trailer for it. It seems like the two leads are like big commercial people because I've seen both
Yeah.
of them in a lot of commercials, especially the
Yes.
girl. She's in like
Yes.
that phone, a
So
lot of phone commercials.
yes, she is. Yeah, she became a bit of a sensation with the commercials, and she also did some kind of YouTube show, I think. So she's kind of come to it that way, I think, is kind of becoming a bit of a celebrity and then kind of getting into films. Um, but maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, they're very good. Like, I really liked all the actors. I thought it was very well done. It just, I don't know, kind of let me down in the end, was my
Mhm.
feeling.
Mhm.
And this is going to be trivia about both of the Rocky movies that we were discussing. Um, Carl Weathers apparently named his favorite film of the Rocky series. Do you know which film it was?
Huh. It can't be three because he didn't really have a huge role in three. I don't really remember two. One was his big break, so I've been thinking it's between one and four. You mentioned he had like a blow up on set on four when we were doing the
Yes.
commentary, but he did
Yes.
show a lot of personality in four. He really looked like he was having a good time. I guess when
Yeah.
he wasn't beefing. So
Yeah.
it's definitely between one and four, I would think. I'd say maybe over time he got over the tension of the set of the onset tension in Rocky 4, and reflecting back, he probably said that's when I got to spread my wings with the Apollo character, and I'll say Rocky 4.
Okay. Well, that's not a bad guess, but it
I'm
was in
wrong.
fact, it was in fact Rocky 3,
No
which
way.
he says it was his favorite because he thinks that Apollo Creed is humanized so well in it. So
Oh,
that's what he said anyway. So
I
Rocky
just thought
3.
he had such a small role in there that he wouldn't have picked it.
Yeah. Oh, I
Oh.
guess,
Because he
that's
wasn't in that much. He did a little bit of the announcing,
yeah.
and then he was in the training sequences, and that was about it, right?
Yeah.
Unless I'm remembering it wrong.
I guess he's probably in the corner at the end as
I
well.
guess. But the
But
fight was like 2 minutes.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Yes, that's true. Well, moving along. Um, Mr. T attended the premiere with somebody. Do you know who he attended the premiere with?
who did he attend the premiere with? Well, off the top of my head, I would think Hulk Hogan. Is it Hulk Hogan?
No, it isn't. It's somebody very important to him, which he later wrote a song about.
He wrote a song?
Yeah. Well, I think he wrote it. He's performed it anyway. Um,
Okay, so it's all right. So you give me a second chance because I already guessed Hulk
yeah,
Hogan. So a
that's right.
second chance. So Mr. T wrote a song about someone and he went to the premiere of Rocky 3 with them. Rocky 3
Yes.
was kind of his first big role.
Yeah.
So there's only so many people he could have known at that point that are famous. Ah,
I wouldn't say it's a famous person.
ah. So it's not famous. His mother?
That's right. Yes.
Oh,
He attended the premiere with his mother and he wrote a song called Mother. But apparently, during the scene where he yells lurid remarks at Adrian, his mother turned to him and said, "I did not raise you to talk to a lady like that." And then she stormed out of the theater.
those were
Oh,
some pretty
man.
bad. Those are pretty
They were.
badass lines.
They were. Now, this film, Rocky 3, this is also where he began with his signature catchphrase. It was the first time we heard it. Do you know the catchphrase to which I am
Fool?
referring?
Fool?
Not fool, not fool.
Sucker?
Nope, more words than
I
that.
pity the fool.
That's it. I pity the fool. There you go. This was the first time he said it. And apparently, a lot of people think he used to say it on the A team, but he never did. He didn't use it on the A team. This is where it
Oh,
comes from. I pity the
wow.
fool. Yeah.
Wow.
Now, you may have already kind of hinted at this in something you said, but of all the Rocky movies that show a boxing match at the end of the film,
Mhm.
which movie is the only one in the series that shows the entire boxing match? It does not jump ahead. It does not
Rocky
use
3.
montage. That's right. It's Rocky
It's so
3.
short.
Yeah, exactly. We see the whole fight in Rocky
Yeah.
3.
Yeah.
So how long do you think it took to film the fight sequence between Rocky and Thunderlips?
Huh. I would say, because there's a lot going on there. Because they
Mhm.
get thrown into the crowd. I would say it's more than a day
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot of extras, and then he has to rip off the gloves. So you're talking about, I'd say I think between 3 days to a week. I would probably guess 4 days.
Nope. It actually took 10 days, if you can believe it.
Wow.
10 days. Unbelievable.
That's crazy.
So James Brown, we see him performing his song "Living in America" in Rocky
Yeah.
4,
Yeah.
and it was released as a single. Now this was actually a bit of a first in a way, and it was also a last in a way. Do you know what I could be referring to?
So it's a first and a last.
Yeah, I mean the first is it's a little bit dubious, but think
Okay.
about the last. It was the last.
James Brown acting?
No, it's specifically the song I'm talking about.
Oh, the song.
So
Okay. It's the first and the last. The last. Living in America. What would be the last about living in America and James? Living in America. I don't know. I don't know where to go with that. I'm
okay,
lost.
well, it's a little bit confusing, but it
Mhm.
was the last top 40 single of his career. It was his
Oh.
final top 40 hit, and it was his first top 40 hit in 11 years. So he hadn't had a hit in over 10 years. And
Got
it
it.
was also his last top 40 hit. It's a
Oh.
little bit confusing.
Yeah.
Um,
See, if you didn't
so
confuse me, I would say it would have been his last hit song.
yeah, exactly, and you would have been right.
Yeah.
I confused you. So
It's your
Sylvester
fault.
Stallone, Sylvester Stallone his original cut of the movie was longer than its current 91 minutes. Do you have any idea how much longer it was?
There's so many montages. I mean, he wouldn't want this to be like a 2-hour movie, would he?
Well, I don't know, but
So I would say the original cut. I mean, that last fight was long and repetitive. I can't imagine that being any longer.
yeah,
Like, where would the extra scenes come from? Because he reuses so much footage as is. Like, if you
yes.
take out the reused footage, it's probably like a 75-minute movie. I'd say probably it's 90 minutes, 110 minutes was the original cut.
That would seem reasonable, but no. The original cut was 1 hour longer than the current
No
cut.
way.
And apparently that is why there are so many montages. And
150 minutes.
yeah, yeah.
Jesus
So
Christ.
there
That's
you go.
insane.
It was an epic. Maybe Drago had more to say in the longer cut. I don't know.
I just
But
think these scenes were just longer. I don't think it was
yeah,
been any better. It would just been more
no.
punching in the face and fight sequences.
Yeah, I think they made the right choice there to
Yeah,
cut it
yeah,
down.
yeah.
Totally. So I guess that's it for trivia. We have a little time left. What's next for us, do you think?
So we we were contemplating what we're gonna do next because the idea of continuing Carl Weathers films was a possibility if they got like an insane amount of hits. But if they were just kind of in pace with what we're regularly doing, we don't want to drag on the tribute too long because we celebrated him. I'm sure we'll get to some of his other movies later on down the line, but this kind of wraps up our Carl Weathers tribute and our Rocky series. I think this puts an end to our Rocky series as well. I'm not really
Mhm.
interested in any other the Creeds or the other Rocky movies. So this kind of wraps up this chapter.
Yeah.
We do have Star Wars. We started that, so we're going to continue that at some point. Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, all that stuff. And we do have to get to the winner of our poll for Black History Month. So
Yes.
for Black History Month, we have covered a lot of black films. We covered Friday After Next, which was more so about Cat Williams and all that stuff. So that started off the month. We obviously did these two movies, paying tribute to Carl Weathers. So I think about 4 movies is good. That's average about one a week to cover the whole month.
Yeah.
So we discussed this prior by email. In that the poll winner, which we had for Black History Month, was Best Denzel Film. The winner is the gang. What's the original gangster? What's
American
that?
Gangster?
American Gangster. The winner's American Gangster. But we're gonna hold off on doing that. We are gonna honor the poll winner and do that later. But to end off the month, we're gonna end it on something a little bit light and fun and short. Since we started doing the commentary stuff, we don't want to overwhelm ourselves with too many long movies. So we're gonna go with the first Friday movie. In the comments section when we did Friday After Next, I did get two separate people asking me. One person say, "Hey, like they heard the commentary and said, how dare you not have watched the first Friday movie?" I'm like, "I'm sorry, like I never seen it." So they were scolding us for not seeing it. And another person say, "Hey, can you please do commentary for next Friday?" So I figured we're gonna pick one of them. We're just gonna start at the beginning and do the first Friday movie. If that also does well, then we'll complete the trilogy. But at a minimum, we're gonna end off Black History Month by doing one more Black movie Friday, and then after that, likely Empire Strikes Back, and later on, sometime before the year is over, we're gonna get into American Gangster. So that's the immediate future, what it looks like.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And so I guess that's about it for today. So thanks for listening. This is Angus Combe for Sean Weathers. And we'd like to thank you for watching and listening to us. And hey, class is now dismissed.